How's everybody doing?
Yeah, good.
Welcome to MoneyMasters. I got it right. The theme for today is going to be, are you on track? What I mean by that is, usually what's happening is, anybody had New Year resolutions and goals that we set?
Yeah.
Okay. By using Valentine's Day, over 65% of the people stop doing them. Right? If you go watch the gyms and stuff, first, after January 1st, 2nd, 1st, they're packed. Right? And now you can probably shoot a bowling ball and it would hit nobody. Right? So just have a check-in. Are you on track? When you give your word to something, do you actually keep it? Or we justify why we don't do it? We're going to start right into it, and we have a beautiful young lady who's going to inspire us today. And she's been Toastmasters about the same time, about 6-7 months now. And help me welcome Miss April.
Happiness, sadness, anger, frustration, fear, anxiety, and hate. Which of this major emotional cores is running your life right now? Fellow Toastmasters and our most distinguished guests, good afternoon. How many of you have watched the movie Inside Out? Only a few of you? Alright, so this will make it a little bit easier for me. Imagine these 5 major emotional cores: happiness, sadness, anger, hate, and fear are depicted into these little characters, and they live inside your brain. They are in control of how you feel, what you see, and what you think at any given moment and at any given time. So if I told you that these 5 major characters are in control of your life, how would you feel? Would you feel good? Would you feel sad? Would you feel elated? How would you feel? Not too good. And this movie, Inside Out, it really touched me because the whole story is basically about the happiness core trying to get rid of the sadness core. Because, I mean, who likes sadness here? Who wants to be sad? No one, right? So, basically, the happiness core was trying to get rid of the sadness core just because happiness core thought that sadness was just going to hurt the person that they were controlling. But all throughout the story, the lesson there is that sadness does have a reason. There's ups and downs in life. You gotta be sad, you gotta be happy. Because sometimes when you're sad, then happiness will come thereafter.
Thank you for the words of wisdom. And the old saying, just be happy, right? Everything else takes care of itself. So we're going to get into the meat and potatoes, the speeches. And our first speaker, Manny's doing a speech from the advanced manual. He's doing the second speech. He's going to talk about being a stay-at-home dad and what's life like that from that side. So, no?
That was my intro.
Okay, so he's going to, come on up, Manny.
Mr. Chair, fellow Toastmasters and most welcome guests. Have you ever had that experience where, while you're going through the experience, you're just dreading every moment and you want it to just be over and done with? However, that particular experience, later on in life, will become a great funny story to share with family and friends. Well, I have a great story to share with you today. The event took place about 15, 16 years ago. Then my wife, who was my girlfriend, lived in London and I lived in Leicester, which was about 100 miles apart. She calls me up out the blue and says, Manny, why don't you come down to London? Me and my friend are staying out in a hotel overnight. Bring a buddy and we'll go out for a few drinks, meal, a few bars and so forth. So I thought, great, I'll take this opportunity to go down. It was a Friday evening, sometime in the summer, so I called up my buddy, he agreed, and we began to drive down to London. It took us about 2 hours on the M1, which is the motorway highway, as we say in the UK. So we got there for about 9 p.m. in the afternoon. We went out, we had a few drinks. It was a great time. And we departed around just after midnight. So around 12:30, we thought we'd make our return journey back home, because I was working the next day at 7 a.m. So because I was driving, I wasn't drinking a lot, just had a couple of drinks. Whereas my friend, he had a sober driver, he drank a fair amount. So as soon as we got into the car, about 5-10 minutes later, we're on the highway, driving down. He's already snoring away because he's had a great night. About, I would say, 90 minutes into the journey and about 20 miles prior to our exit, the gas light comes on. Oh! And there's me driving on my own in pitch dark, because this is the only stretch of the highway for about 20 miles where there's no street lights. It's just cars driving up and down. So there's me, the light comes on, and I just freeze. But I do know that when the light comes on, you do have like a certain amount of mileage you can do before it stops. So I thought, great, but I can't take any risk, because I know where the next gas station is. It's just outside of where my exit is. So that's 21 miles away. So I thought I'll accelerate a bit quicker, because I'll get there a lot sooner. And it was working to some extent. So there I was, driving, putting down the accelerator, and it just shot from 80 to about 100, 120 mile per hour. But the mileage was coming down because I was watching the signs, and it was going from 21, 16, 14, 11, 7, and then it just conked out. And I had to put it in neutral, take it slowly onto the hard shoulder, put on my hazard lights, and bring the car to a halt. Then I was in a bit of a dilemma, because I think we were about 5 miles away from our exit. Do I wake up my friend, who's probably still drunk, and tell him we've got to get out, walk, run to the nearest gas station, and then come back and fill up the car? Or do I leave him in the car and go on my own, get some gas, ask somebody for a lift back to the car? So I decided to nudge him. I woke him up and said, buddy, get up. He goes, are we there? I said, no, well, not technically. We're about 5 miles away. We've got to run to the gas station, get some gas and come back. He just stared at me and looked at me. I don't quite think he actually understood or comprehended the situation we're in. I thought he was going to either swear, throttle me, punch me, but he didn't do anything. He just looked at me and said, let's run. So we got out the car, zipped up our jackets, and then we're there on the highway, on the side, with our dress shoes, dress pants, because we're dressed to go out. We ain't dressed to do a midnight marathon run on the highway on a Friday night. So we started to run. There we go. And I'm a lot quicker than he is and faster, so I was in front of him. And the distance began to grow between us. And we're both wearing these black jackets, and the only little form of light we had was just truckers going by and vehicles. And he's shouting from the back, are we there? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Nearly, just keep running, just keep running. And I thought, well, I brought this problem upon us, I have to keep going, I have to keep going. And so I ran faster and faster and faster and faster. Soon I think I lost him, because when I turned around to see where he was, I couldn't see him in the pitch dark. So I went, I thought, I've got to keep going, I've got to keep going, I'll make it, I'll make it. And then a calculation is going through my head, which is the fastest runner can do a mile in 7 minutes. I can probably do it in 10 minutes, 10 times around 5, 6 is 50, 60 minutes. Okay, I'll get there, and if I get there, I'll just beg somebody to take me back, fill up the gas. But what I do about my friend, I don't know. I'm sure somebody will pick him up. So I just kept running, and then soon came to a halt. I was tired. My feet were burning because I had shoes on, not runners. So I began to walk slowly. Then a car comes by. And at this point in time, I think it must have been about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. The sun was beginning to rise. And I had to go work for 7 o'clock. But anyway, this car comes, cuts my path and parks right in front. It's a police car. I think the game's up. I'm in trouble now, because I had been drinking and running on the highway. So anyway, the back passenger door opens, and there's a familiar face. It's my buddy. And he goes, get in the car, Manny. And so I did. I got into the car, and the police officer, there was 2 of them actually in the car. One was the driver, one was on the passenger seat. He turns around and says, Hello, hello. Who decided to go for a midnight run tonight? So I sat in the car, and because they just burst out in laughter, the two policemen, it sort of eased things for us. He goes, okay, great, great guys. I'll take you to the nearest gas station and take you back to your car, and you can fill up. So I popped the question, how did you guys know? We're running on the highway. He said, well, a couple of truckers were going by, and they radioed in saying there's these two young lads at around 2 a.m. running on the highway, dressed up in their dress clothes, but we did notice some car with hazard lights behind. And I really thank the Lord that they actually did ring in, because there's no way I was going to be able to make it back in time. So we got to the gas station, and the police officer popped the question, have you been drinking? And I said, yes, I have. So he said, I've got to breathalyse you. He breathalyzed me, but it was great, because I had actually ran for about what he said, 5 miles. So I think I had actually evaporated alcohol out of my system. So he took us back, and while he was driving back, the sun was rising. It was just a beautiful morning. And then he explained how far I actually had ran. It was about 5 miles, I think. So anyway, about half an hour later, I got home, sneaked into my house, and I think it must have been 6 o'clock in the morning now. Sneaked into bed, got under the duvet, and I just began to pray. Thank you. Thank you, I got home safely, everybody was okay, we didn't get hit by any car. And then my phone began to vibrate. And I got to my phone and looked at it, and it was my wife. Thanks for coming last night. I hope you got home safely. Let's do it again next Friday. Thank you.
Our next speaker is doing her third speech, and the theme's getting to the point with the front, the middle, and the end of her speech. So, Karen, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, how's everybody today? February the 18th, 2016. I've already written 2015 on 3 checks. My speech today is to perhaps give you some insight as to whether working at home is A, an option, or B, not an option for you. I've been a hairdresser for 25 years working inside of my home. Some of you may be thinking, well, that's great. Some of you may be thinking, no, I don't think so. I didn't always start from home. I used to work in many salons. I worked in Delta. I worked out in Tawasin. I used to love the drive along River Road, looking at our snow-capped mountaintops along the river. I also worked in New Westminster and way out in Langley. I say way out in Langley because that's where it was. It was way out in the country. Willowbrook Mall was there, but it was very small, very ho-hum. At this time I realized I'm not a country girl, I'm a city girl. My profession, though, gave me an opportunity to either work inside of the home or outside of the home. It's a career choice that a person could work 7 days a week, 23 hours a day, and on that last hour, somebody will call you for that haircut. Usually, it's the groom. My hours in a hair salon working for somebody frustrated me. I'd be scheduled to work from 9 until 5. I'd go in, and I might not have a client until 11 o'clock, and then another one at 3 o'clock. So there's wasted time sitting there. Then when I would get home at 6 o'clock, I'd have 3 or 4 phone calls from friends and family saying, would you like to cut my hair? Maybe a hair color. And I'd think, well, I really didn't do much work during the day, I may as well. So I was actually putting in 12 hours, but really only getting paid for 4. I thought about this and how I could set up at home. With regards to a hair salon, I hope to give you some ideas, but these ideas could be put towards any other businesses as well. Number 1, do I want to have people coming into my home? Do you live with other people? Do they want to have people coming into the home? Number 2, is this business permitted in my city? Does it require licensing? Number 3, does my home have the structure to handle having a home-based business? Having a home-based business. Do I have a separate entrance that people can come into? Do I have adequate parking, so not to tick off the neighbors? Do I have a washroom so that clients don't need to go through and use my personal space? These are just a few of some of these ideas that should be considered if setting up a business in your home. If you're not a morning person, you could start at 11 o'clock and you could work well into the evening. in a client-based business. This works with services for people who work regular hours and can't get to you during the 9 to 5 hours, 9 to 5 during the day. It can also work very well for you to maintain your household in that you're not punching the clock like everybody else. You can do your shopping at less busy times. Have you been to Costco lately on a Saturday or Sunday?
Oh, God.
It's not very much fun. Trust me, it's a lot better on a Tuesday at 1 in the afternoon. Nobody's there.
Yeah.
So to recap a little bit of this, a few ideas that to be considered with your family. Number one, will your family be respectful of your business space? Or are they going to be constantly coming out and interrupting while you're working? Number two, did you enjoy that drive to work? Perhaps that drive to work was your relaxed time, your calm down time to get to work and start your business along with your way home. Number three, will you feel like you never get out of the house, that you're always there, work and personal? Number four, what if I move? Can I take my business with me? Or do I lose my business because I've set up my structure in one place? The idea is to be happy in your home life and along in your work life. In choosing whether to work from home can be an option for your business, consider these factors and do the research. Many of you set up shop and decided it's just not for me, and you'd much rather have your business outside of the home, come home, kick off your shoes, and that you've separated your work from your business. Not one is better than the other, it's how you work it and how it works for you. I do miss the drive along River Road. I miss seeing the snow-capped mountaintops and the tugboats on the river. But now what I do is I set my clients all up on rainy days. I wait for that sunny day, and then I go for the drive. Thank you.
Like anything we do in Toastmasters is how do we improve as we get evaluated in what we've done. So our first evaluator will be Liz. Come on up. She's going to evaluate Manny's speech.
Thank you, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests here today. Manny's speech. This one was about let's get personal. Giving a personal story and learning the elements of telling a good story. I thought Manny did a great job. He took the point of the story, what seemed to be was taking a bad situation and turning it into a good story, and I believe he explained that very well. Using a lot of descriptions about how they were running in their dress shoes and not in running shoes, and his friends sleeping and snoring as they just got started. All of these help to create the story, using words and creating the ambiance. And also building to a climax. And he did that well. Driving along, everything seemed okay. We got this all worked out. I didn't drink a lot, he said. But he was the designated driver, but then suddenly the light goes on. What do I do? And that's how he used including the audience very well. Because he asked the question, what do I do? He said, do I wake up my friend and do this, or do I do that? And that includes the audience. Kind of pause. I don't know, what would I do? And brings us even more into the story. Body language, driving, everything was really well done. His voice is very strong and loud, and the dictation is very clear. There's a couple of things. He's a bit of an advanced speaker, so I go a little bit more into what he could do, because otherwise, obviously, you know, it was great. It was entertaining and fun. But I think using more of the stage would be a good idea. He was standing forward, which I think is good sometimes, but I think he could have used more of the stage, standing in the middle, talking to everybody, and then when maybe the running, right, moving forward and using that as the space and then looking back, but just using a bit more of the stage rather than staying in one place. The other thing about eye contact, we all know eye contact is very important, but it's also important to really spend like a half a second or however long that is, I have no idea, under people's eyes and actually seeing people. I know that Manny was looking at the audience, but it was very quick, like moving around like this, and it can just add a little bit more, just that little bit more to connect with the audience. used everything. Was there anything else? I believe that was it for pointers that I could suggest to make it even better than it already was. It was a great ending. He ended with a laugh, and I think he did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. For Karen's speech is working from home for you. Harry Priya's coming up to evaluate Karen Clark's.
Fellow Toastmasters and esteemed guests, my name is Harry Priya and I'm here to evaluate Karen's third speech. And the purpose of the speech was to be clear about the, sorry, 1 second. Just to have a clear general purpose and a specific purpose and to be organized in her speech. So, okay, here's my evaluation. I thought Karen did a great job with the speech. She didn't show much nervousness. I thought she started out the speech really well with a joke, and that kind of broke the ice immediately. Also, she used some humor, and that kind of kept the atmosphere light. She also gave great tips for considering for the factors that one has to consider when starting their own business. And I also like how she used real life examples like the best time to visit Costco and things like that people can actually relate to. And she was able to drive her point home with that. So overall I would say that was really good. What she could have done better is, although she did have a clear voice, I thought she could have slowed down her speech. Sometimes I found it hard to kind of follow what she was saying. She was too quick. And she could have also used pauses in her speech while also using gaze, like Liz pointed out. She could have slowed down and she could have also used more floor space. She could have used all this. So that's about it. The eye contact and the floor space, that's mostly what she could. But otherwise, I thought she was really good.
Feeling a bit Sally at one point. I'm actually feeling more like Kareem. Mr. Chair, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests. Table topics is where we get to think on our feet. It's an invaluable skill that helps you in everyday life. So what I'll do is I'll ask a question and I'll pick someone from the audience to come and speak on it for 2 minutes. Of the audience, or of our guests, sorry, who would like to participate? So Mahesh and Gennady. Like that. Great. Well, I'll ask the first question to a member, because it's going to be a little bit difficult. I'm going to ask, our theme is, are you on track? So my question is, I'd like you to elaborate on the question, are you on track? Lumesh.
Table Topics Master, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. I knew you would pick me. Last week it was like, you didn't get to speak a word. Okay, I'm going to get you this time. Am I on track, or what does it mean to be on track? It's a great question. I was listening to 7 Habits of Highly Effective People in my car. Starts with, have a goal in mind, right? Think of the end and start. But when you only think of the end, that's not enough. You have to also think of all the steps you have to take to get to the end. So every day, your personal evaluation about yourself, maybe before going to bed, is probably a good time to look at your end goal and also look at your weekly goal and the goal that you set for today and say, am I on track? did I do all the things that was necessary for today to fulfill for the week and for the month and for the year? As a long-term planner, it's a great idea to be always asking yourself, am I on track? So first thing is you decide what your end goal is, and then break that down into small daily plans, daily steps to take to follow that plan, and every day asking yourself, am I on track, Mr. Toastmaster?
Thank you, Lomash. You handled that very well. Table topics it really is like adding RAM to your brain. It just supercharges your brain. And so thank you so much, Lomash. My next question, New Year's resolutions, which Paul was saying, they by February 14th, they're gone. So why in your opinion does that happen? Can I get Gennady to talk about it?
Mr. Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, and distinguished guests. So why do people want to make New Year's resolutions? Is that the question?
Why does it end, like by now they're sort of
Why does
drifted
it end?
on?
Why does it end? Well, let me start with why I think people do it in the first place, is that I think we all want to be better. Whether we have a plan to do it or not, we all have this instinctive need to get better. And the challenge is that we are all creatures of habit. And we either have good habits or habits that, well, let me put it this way, we either have habits that serve us or habits that don't serve us. So I think when people make New Year's resolutions, they're making it at a time when they have certain habits and that have gotten to that point, that have either brought them closer to their previous goals or not. So nothing really changes on January 1st. Things change when the individual decides if they're going to change their habits or not. So when they get to that point 2-3 weeks after the new year and they realize that things aren't working out the way that they wanted to, if they don't have those habits of evaluating their position, whether they're on track, evaluating what they can do differently, which is something that should have been happening before, they'll get discouraged, and it's a normal feeling. So they will they'll falter, and once you slip a little bit, it's easy to slip off completely, and that could be indicative of that habit that was going on before. So it's something that has to start with the person's choice consciously and say, I want to change my habit. I want to be focused. I want to be disciplined. I want to do the things I know I have to do, even though I don't always feel like doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gennady. That was excellent. My next question is, what is a goal you hope to achieve this year, and why is it important to you? May I have Mash?
In fact, this is my first ever public speaking, and thank you very much for Mr. Table Topics to provide me this opportunity. And basically, the topic also is a very favorite of mine. That what is that I want to achieve, and basically the topics which I select for myself, which I want to achieve, is something much higher than what I actually ever achieved. Putting a topic that higher or a target that higher is basically to setting a higher goal for myself, to reaching to that level where I can stretch a bit to myself, or to actually achieve something which I feel a sense of achievement later, that yes, this is something which was not a very easy goal for me to achieve, but yes, I have put my efforts to get somewhere closer to that, or I have achieved it. So for this year, My goal is to basically settle back in Vancouver, and this is the city of my dreams, and we have put our effort to get into over here, and there were kind of hurdles in careers of me and my wife. To start with, in the last 1 month, things have been very positive. I've done all the due diligence preparations to get into a psyche of every single company I want to work in, understood the culture, understood every single bit of it, and I believe that pretty much the signs are showing that I'm going to be on my target right on dot. It's happening much quicker than what I would believe, but I would give a credit to my preparation and my a kind of a reading ability to know about the culture and the people, and that's what is paying off. So basically, that's what I've learned. Thank you.
It's pretty good. Table Toastmasters today, wasn't he? It wasn't very sally about it. I'm gonna say it takes a lot of courage. I remember that when I first started out here, being brought up here, I was like, no, please don't. So I commend you for the guests that have come out here to speak. It's very good. Generally speaking, everybody had the protocol pretty well, handled it pretty well. About introduce when you got introduced up here, you hand off with the from the table topic master. Myself, protocol here. When you come up here, you have to say thank you, Mr. Table Topic Master, other Toastmasters, and honor guests. So that's the basic of the protocol at the beginning, and the protocol at the end is usually when you hand off, back to you, Mr. Table Topic Master. That's some of the guests didn't know about that, but that's basically what you have to do when you're brought up to speak and when you're about to go back. When you're giving the podium, when you leave, give the podium back to the person who invited you up here. That's how it should be done. So in the future, when you get invited to any event, that's what you do. Got it? So let's go into the content, a little bit of Lomash. As you can see, he's a pretty grounded speaker. He's done a few time on speaking, engagement more, so you can see that he's pretty good with eye contact and all. The one point of improvement I can suggest is, and which the other speakers have done as well too, they move forward, so they kind of blocked out Paul and anybody also sitting in this area here, so you kind of being left out of the entire conversation. If you stand back here or just move the podium, that way it allows you this space, because I believe the podium was here and you kind of move up in front of the podium. So that's the reason why. So just move the podium out of the way entirely. Yeah, back up a little bit, more engaging question to the audience, rather than just having superfluous questions that may not be relevant to this group. So if you ask person directly and or also put yourself personally as well. Gennady was very grounded. New Year resolution. He answered the question, but he brought you along to in his conversation how he did it, how he views it. But the only thing that I can see is that the point of improvement is that instead of using them or they, somebody else out there, just say me, myself. Have more personalized when you're up here. It's easier to talk about topics that you're intimately with, so that way you can also, people can relate to you as well. Mahesh, pretty good for first time. Loud, strong, confident. That's a sign of confidence here, and you're not shaking your boots or anything like that when you're up here. Very commendable. And as a new person, you're able to speak and have a different variety in your tone. That's very good. That's more like an advanced level speaker actually, so very commendable. The only thing I've noticed is too, if I've just been showing you right now, is hand clasping. If you leave it on the side, then you'd be more engaging with one hand, the other hand, rather than closing people up when you do this. That's for everybody else. And for myself, I have to let you know is that when you speak, consider using third person or myself person rather than you. That's one thing I want to give you the takeaway as well. Other than that, you guys all did very well. It was entertaining to hear everybody else up here. I believe.
Good afternoon, respected chair, fellow Toastmasters, and distinguished guests. My role is to evaluate the meeting in general. I think we started the meeting on time. The room was set up properly. Regarding the performance, chairperson was Paul. He made sure that the roles were being there was a good transition between the roles, and he made a point that whoever comes in was greeted in, and he gave the stage to them. Another thing, he explained the theme because it was missing on our paper, so he just explained what the theme was. Are we on track, or are you on track? And he explained a little. He gave some description about it. He made sure that our guests were introduced, and also our area director was introduced before we started the meeting. And he made sure the stage was occupied all the time. Next, about our timer, Nabbit, and the grammarian Sally Ann, and the R counter. I think all the three did a good justice to their role. They gave a detailed report on every person who has been speaking here, what they're supposed to do regarding the timings, or whether the R counters, or whether the machine was clear on, they were all clear on their roles, and they gave a clear report on what was happening. Regarding the inspirator, I think April did a good job on that role. Whatever the emotions that she said, has some way or the other has controlled a person. And I believe that I am an emotional person, I get controlled by emotions. So it was one of my challenge to come up here and speak. So I had a fear in me. I have no idea how I'm going to evaluate people. I have no idea what other people think. So those emotions actually control us. So once we take a step ahead of it, I think we can be a better person, or we can achieve what we have to achieve. And the table topic evaluator, Suva, I think he explained the protocols that has to be followed in the meeting for our guests. And he also gave some tips to our speakers on how to be a better speaker. Some suggestions, the suggestion that I would give is, I would recommend the podium to be somewhere over here so that we don't miss the people sitting here. Other than that, I think the meeting was really good. Everything was planned ahead. And I have to say that this group has some positive energy, and always been welcoming to the guests or the new people, and made a point that every person is here to grow and help each other, so that both we get something out from this meeting. Thank you.
Just any club business?
So just to add on to what Rachel said, fellow Toastmasters, welcome again. If anybody wants to speak as a guest speaker at another club's evaluation contest, their evaluation contest will be on March 7th, that's a Monday, 7 p.m. in the evening in the Guilford Library. So if anybody just wants to speak there and you'll be evaluated, if you're comfortable enough to have multiple people evaluating you, then by all means you can be there.
So the date again
Yes.
is March 7th?
March 7th, that's Monday, 7 p.m. in the Guilford Library. So talk to me if you're interested in that, if you want to be
It's a
there.
great opportunity.
Yeah, it's a very great opportunity to see another club as well. And I think they're one of the longer clubs, right? Longer meeting hours.
No, they're an hour and a quarter.
An hour and a half.
It's actually 7:30 to 8:45. Because again, they're in the library, they've got to get out by 9.
Yeah.
Right, that's it for club business.
Awesome, thank you. Just closing comments, I think it's a great opportunity for us to step up and support our club, and even when people from the outside is going to come in and let's step on the leadership roles, what Rachel was sharing. So I think that'd be awesome to get ourselves back on the map. And I think, so back to the theme about being on track, so just do a check-in every couple of months, every quarter, in your personal life, in your professional life, where you're really at. Even our relationship, my wife and I always talk about that. Sometimes we're in the same house, but we're not really connecting. So how do you make a time to have even a date night? And of course, sometimes the kids are busy, the date night gets put behind. Right? And my kids are all older, you guys know, but it's interesting because I had a meeting with them about 5-6 years ago, we're chatting, and I says, okay, family meeting, go, something's up, Dad's gonna, we're talking about something. I says, today everything changes. They go, what do you mean, Dad? I said, you guys are not number one in our lives anymore. They go, well, what do you mean? I says, Mom's number one fact in my life. Right? So be okay with setting that up for yourself, just checking with visual content, you are on track for everything that's happening. So I'd like to bring up Graham for the closing comments of the meeting, please.
It has been a power-packed hour. Lots happening. We've all grown. We've all stepped out of our comfort zone a little bit, right? We've all stepped up and just a little bit of growth, right? So congratulations to everyone, and I close the meeting.